It's Dr. Ruth Roberts and Gracie and Mona and Esau. And we're hanging out. Mary Jo's here too. We're all hanging out because our house is getting shown. So we went to the dog park and had a nice stroll around. Had to go find a little more cell phone signal so I could get on the air with y'all. And so here we are sitting in a parking lot. There's a little bit of outside noise going on. Hopefully this microphone will filter out some of it. Had some really interesting stuff going on this week. If you watched the live video last week, we were talking about different properties of food according to traditional Chinese medicine. And that's part of what I used to develop the original Crock-Pot diet. And so, we talked about things that are cooling in nature and warming and all of that good stuff. And and then so somebody kind of joined in a little bit later. So Mary posted a comment, well, what the heck is cooling? What does that mean? So when we talk about traditional Chinese medicine, hey, Gail, great to see you. Thanks for that. I hope you're doing good with all your kitties. I'll get back to the cooling idea, but Gail has done great work taking care of kitties that otherwise would not have had a place to stay, and she specializes in sort of older cats and feral cats, and it's amazing what she's been able to accomplish as far as keeping them happy and healthy and safe. So glad to see you. Hope you guys are well. But at any rate, so back to cooling and traditional Chinese veterinary medicine. So much like some of this makes sense and some of it doesn't. Some of it is really pretty intuitive and some of it's not. So for instance, in July, would you rather have a slice of watermelon or a roast lamb, a chunk of roast lamb for a picnic? And I think most of you guys would probably pick watermelon. And intuitively, you choose that because it's more cooling, and that seems to kind of cool us down in the summertime. Versus lamb, we think of lamb roast or leg of lamb, things of that nature, in the winter because it's warming. And so, indeed, lamb is actually one of the most warming proteins that are available. Chicken is kind of next. And then pork is considered to be neutral. Whitefish is considered to be cooling. Those are both cooling, pork and whitefish. And then beef is considered to be neutral temperature. So we live in the southeast, and so most of the dogs that I see have patterns of disharmony that relate to being too hot and living in a damp, humid environment. And so we want to use things to help cool these guys down and dry them out if we can and things of that nature. So that's where we'll use the more cooling properties of food, whether it's protein or vegetables. So pretty much any green vegetable is cooling in nature. And then we'll use things that dry out damp, like mushrooms or beans, interestingly enough, help to dry damp out, things of that nature. Because damp is what you think, it's the humidity, it's also in the body, if it lays around too long, it turns into phlegm. And phlegm is exactly what you think it is, as far as mucus and things of that nature. But phlegm does some really bizarre things once it's laid around for too long. And so tumors like mast cell tumors, lymphoma, things of that nature, those are considered to be phlegm nodules. They're soft, they're easy to move around, they're abnormal, obviously, so we want to actually dry up damp and help to transform phlegm back into something that the body can get rid of. And so that's part of the principles that we use in the Crock-Pot diet. So because most of my patients were hot, they were typically blood deficient. Blood is considered to be one of the essential or vital fluids in traditional Chinese medicine. Sometimes you can be blood deficient and be anemic, and sometimes you're just blood deficient. And that's when the hair goes gray, which is normal as we get older. The nails become brittle, the skin is dry and dandruffy and things of that nature. So that's part of what I did with the Crock-Pot diet, is to use those principles of Chinese medicine to help support animals that are exhibiting these signs and symptoms. Now, diet is always a long-range plan. It's not a short-term fix for everything, but that's the thing that's so beautiful, is that we saw when we started using the Crock-Pot diet back in 2007 with the first pet food recall, we saw animals that had had horrible skin, horrible GI stuff, in a space of 2 to 3 weeks look a lot better. They get more energy, their skin starts to improve, the diarrhea starts to get better, they're not vomiting 3 nights a week, all of those things. And so that's what really prompted me to continue to expand on this diet. And as I learned more about traditional Chinese medicine and also started studying functional medicine, that's when the diet in its current form, in the current recipe, really came into being. So that's what it's all about. We, for years, had the recipe available at no charge, but what we found was that people were taking so many liberties with it that they were ending up harming their pets. So they, have what's called recipe creep. So, I don't have any of this, so I'll just skip it this time. So the reason we put it into a book format is for twofold. One is so that if you purchase the book and the Facebook private community, and it's not very expensive, it's like $47 or something of that nature, you get lifetime access, any upgrades to the recipe, and actually in the coming months we're going to have a series of new recipes set up so that it's easier for people to figure out how to manipulate the diet specific to their pet's needs. And then the other thing is that you have my support in the Facebook community. You have the support of other people that have been using the Crock-Pot diet. So that's kind of the idea behind it, is that we want you to make this as successful and as easy as possible. So that's the idea behind it. Now, speaking of pet food recalls, Jenna's been helping me get blogs up on the website at theoriginalcrockpotdiet.com, and she put a really nice one up there, I think yesterday, and I'll post a link to it here. But there's been another pet food recall for both Blue Buffalo and WellPet, and they, and it's not all of their various and standard flavors and varieties and whatnot. It's very specific. But what happened is there was too much active thyroid hormone in the pet food. And what that does is I think these were all dog products, so what it does is it makes these dogs hyperthyroid. So they've got too much thyroid hormone running around because they're taking it in the food, and it was making them sick. It was making them anxious. And if you think about Graves' disease in people, which is hyperthyroidism due to a benign tumor, or hyperthyroidism in cats, if you've lived with a cat that's hyperthyroid, they're like, yeah, their eyebrows are in their back pockets, they're running around like maniacs, they're eating everything that's not nailed down, they're yowling at night because they're anxious because their metabolisms are turned up way too high. So, that's the most recent one. The other link I'll put into the comments section is a link to the FDA Watch List, and you can sign up to get emails when there are new recalls that happen. I think there's another recall that's up there for a particular brand of pig ears, and I can't recall which one, that are contaminated with salmonella. Earlier this year, there have been a total of 10 recalls since January so far. Earlier this year, Evangers and WellPet had a recall because there was too much pentobarbital in the pet food. And for those of you that don't know, pentobarbital is a euthanasia drug. It's part of what's in that injection that we give when it's time to help petsies out of this planet. And so the question becomes, what the heck is it doing in dog food? And there's a if you go to the FDA link and click on that particular brand that was recalled, there's a very bizarre letter from the FDA about what happened, and essentially they're not quite sure what happened. The one Evangers brand was a beef food. They did find evidence of contamination with pork and horse meat. And that's horses are probably where the pentobarbital came from, because it is used to euthanize them. The thing that's really, really weird is they are not saying where these meat sources came from. They were labeled as not for human consumption, and they were not USDA stamped, meaning that it's, really dodgy. The other thing that's really bizarre is that some years ago, it became illegal to take horses to slaughter. So did this come from Canada? Did it come from Mexico? Did it come from China? We don't know. There was no report on the origin of these protein sources. And clearly, that's contaminated. So if it's supposed to be beef chunks and there's pork and horse in there, that's not cool. The other thing the FDA found is that there were multiple issues in that manufacturing facility. And by the way, it was one facility manufacturing food for multiple brands of pet food. So there were multiple issues which the manufacturer must now resolve, and they will be under the FDA's watch. But this cycle keeps happening over and over and over again. And this is what is so frustrating in my mind. They're telling us that we've got the safest food supply in the world, and to be honest, we probably do. I think in China, I've got some clients that I've consulted with there that, you routinely don't believe that your food or your supplies are safe. For instance, my client there had problems with his kitties with kidney failure, all of a sudden developing fevers and elevated white blood cell counts, and then come to find out that it was because the subcutaneous fluids he was using were contaminated. So this is a growing issue across the world. We do have a fairly strong regulatory agency in the U.S., and that's the Federal Drug Agency, or FDA. But they're responsible for a lot, and they've been looking for salmonella and other bacterial contaminants of pet food in particular, because they've made so many humans sick. So, in another blog some years ago, the FDA, I was writing about the FDA, was asking pet owners to wash their hands for 20 minutes after they had fed their dogs with hot soapy water, which none of us do. So if your pet's food is not safe for you to handle, is it safe for your pet to eat? And my answer would be no, it's not. So I'm not sure what to tell you guys. Obviously my bent is to suggest home-cooked food. You know exactly what's going into it. You know exactly the ingredients, how your pet responds to them, and then you are able to make adjustments to make it better for your pup or your kitty, so that they're eating great food, and and you don't have to worry about recalls. But it is just fascinating. So again, go check that FDA link out. You can sign up for notifications, and hopefully that didn't come through. But anyway, hopefully you can go sign up for notifications of pet food recalls. And there is an FDA watch list. If you poke around on the site a little bit further, you can find out about what other recalls are happening. It's fascinating and horrifying at the same time to see 1 week a manufacturer or a processor of diced onions, for instance, states they have a recall, and then the next week, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Harris Teeter, they're recalling these prepackaged soups that we all buy because they have these contaminated onions in them. So it's a growing problem, and it's not cool. So best I can tell you is eat whole foods, prepare them at home, and keep yourself and your pets safe. So kind of in summary, what does this mean, these most recent recalls, especially the one for Evangers with the contamination of phenobarbital? And one, it means that euthanized animals, horses probably, were made into pet food. Two, it means that multiple brands are manufactured at one or two plants. In 2007, there were a lot of canned foods that were contaminated with melamine, and all of them, and I think it was something like 17 or 20 of them at the end of the day, were manufactured in one plant. And interestingly enough, I think it's the same plant that's under observation, so to speak, from the FDA because of this most recent recall. And then the third thing is that most pet foods, even though they say they're beef and potato or duck and potato or whatever it is, they're probably contaminated with another protein source. And this has been demonstrated multiple times through multiple studies. So if you're trying to do an elimination diet for your pet and it's just not working and you're thinking, well, he just can't eat beef anyway, it may not be that. It may be that what you're trying to avoid is actually in the food. And so try as you might, it just ain't happening. You cannot present your pet a clean diet if it's a commercial one. And I think, to be fair, the prescription diets, the Royal Canin, they have fared a bit better as far as contaminants go when different agencies or nutritionists do studies and things of that nature. So that's what I can tell you there. Have you guys got any questions? Looks like maybe just Gail's still here with us. If you've got some specific questions, please let me know what I can do to help you. Any questions I can answer for you, I'm happy to do it. The one other thing I'm going to remind you about is we've got the Holistic Total Body Support, our multivitamin, available. I gave some to my acupuncturist to give to her kitty and see how he liked them. And two things happened. One is he loves them, and the second is that she was able to break him of dry food because he loves the vitamins so much he plows straight into the canned food. So he's going to have a couple more months in front of him, weeks or months getting used to that, and then she's going to try to convert him to cooked food, which I think will end up creating just a great source of health for him. And what she said is that yes, he loves them, and his coat is softer, and he already was a pretty handsome guy, and he's got a lot more energy. So fortunately or unfortunately, he's up at 5:30 running around playing like a galloping herd of elephants across her hardwood floors. So that's all good news for that kitty cat. So those vitamins are, because it's a new product for us, and I am so proud of it and so happy to get it into your hands. They are available as a buy one get one free, and you can put in the code, which is BOGO space HBTS. And frankly, it's set up so that if you put two of one size in your cart, it should give you 50% off, or a free one. So that's all good stuff. Free shipping is always there. I hope you guys are well, and I hope that you guys avoid all those pet food recalls, because that's just nasty business. So from all the crew in the back, who are now pretty well chilled out, Esau, Gracie, and Mona's like mad because she's stuck behind them, and it's terrible, and they just take up too much room for her. Hey Vicki, sorry, I'm glad you popped in there. So Signature and a locally made dog food, which is great, plus several supplements, and she can't seem to get organized enough about something, and I'm not quite clear what that is. Vicki, could you resend that last part in another comment? And that's the thing, is that I'd love to tell you that everybody should feed all Crock-Pot, but sometimes it just doesn't work, and especially if you've got big dogs, 70-pound dogs. Oh, she's saying she can't seem to get organized enough to cook for my pups. So that's the thing, is that it's, you have to choose what's going to work well for you and your pups. And Vicki, if that's what you can do successfully on an every week basis, that's fantastic. So what I would say, though, what you may consider trying is get a big roaster oven that you can do 3 batches at a whack, or a big pan that you can stick in the oven at about 250 degrees and do a triple batch. And then once that's cooled down, bag it up into roughly 5-day portions for your pups, however much that may or may not be. And what that does is you're going to invest about maybe 15 minutes throwing the pan of food together, and then another 10 minutes once it cools down to kind of process it up, whether that's with an immersion blender or a good old-fashioned potato masher, and then bag it up. So that whole process from start to finish should take you less than an hour. And this is the daunting thing when we think about cooking. We think about it being a huge time suck, and in fact it's not. So for our 3 guys and for the 4 kitties, it's it's about, what is it, Mary Jo, about 4 hours process to make a month's worth of food for everybody. Yeah, something like that. So I mean, so we go through it together. We've got a nice system down and just knock it out. So, but that's the thing, is that our lifestyle is such that we rarely eat out. All of our food is, we start with whole foods and then go from there. So, Vicki, I think you're making the best choices you can given your time constraints. So, that's what I always tell folks. Whatever you can do to make this work nutritionally for your guys, that is the best way to go. Signature is a great brand of food. Actually, it has not experienced any recalls, thankfully, so we'll touch wood and hope that stays the same. And Vicki says she purchased the recipe and thinking about it a lot, and maybe I'll get it together soon. It's one of them deals. It's just, you have to make choices in life, and so do what you can. Make the best of your time for you and your pups. And just give it a whack, give it a whirl one time, see what happens. A lot of people are fixated on kind of scrubbing and chopping and this and that and the other. And I think Vicki, if you looked at the video that's in the members area for the Crock-Pot ebook, literally all I've done is I think I bought a bag of pre-chopped kale for that video. All I did was wash everything, cut the tip of the butternut squash, which is indigestible, off, and crammed it all in the crock pot, put the water in, put the oil, put the coconut oil in, put the lid on, turn the bugger on. So literally it took me, I think, maybe 4 minutes to load that thing up and get it ready to cook. So it doesn't have to be hard. Greens cook down like mad, so if all the greens won't fit at one go, put what you can in there and then add the rest of them in a couple of hours when it started to cook down a little bit more. So I hope that helps you. If you guys have any other questions, love to hear them, but I think that's kind of it. So until next week, looking forward to see you guys. If there's something you would like for me to talk about, let me know. We'll get this video, get a couple of links put up there for you in a little bit, and we'll go from there. So until next week, remember, your pet's best health starts in the bowl. Take good care.